Move to our next event, which is panel discussion. And the topic is the next decade for API strategy in an AI world. For that, let me invite our leaders from all the different companies. The first one is Prashant Hen. He's a sales head at IBM. Prashant? Okay. Okay. We have George from IBM. He's a moderator for this session as well. Please welcome George. Then we have Abhijit Day. He's a senior VP head AI and API product at Axis Bank. Welcome, Abhijit. Then we have Prashant Kumar, program director at IBM. Then we have Suri Nagarajan, Solution Director at IBM. And last one, Vinita Gulati, Head of API Pre-Sales and Solution Architect at TCS. Please welcome. So, stage is all yours.
Working?
No, I think it's not working. If you want, you can use this.
Hello. Good afternoon. How is everyone? Are we lucky to have the lunchtime shift in our workshop discussion? So, everyone, thanks for your time. For the next hour, we're going to have a little bit of a different setup than the previous presentation. So, as you can see, we've got 4 fantastic guests here, and the idea of this discussion is to ask each of them various questions on, as you heard it, the next decade of API strategy, right? So before we get going, I would like to introduce the guests. So to my left here, we've got Abhijit Day, who looks after the API AI strategy at Access Bank. Good to have you here, Abhijit. Next, we have Praveen Vaidya Nathan, who's our API product management at IBM. Next, we have Vinita Gulati, who's the pre-sales technical solution architect for TCS. And then Suri from IBM as well, who leads our integration tech sales strategy across South Asia. So I guess, let's jump right in. The idea of today is we've got 3 topics that we want to cover. So the first is aligning your API strategy with AI. The second topic we're going to cover is sort of the governance and guardrails around building an API AI strategy. And then lastly, we're going to sort of touch on the future roadmap of API and AI-led. And then if we have some time, I've got a few questions that I'm going to ask the folks off the cuff just to keep them on their toes. But let's get into it. So as I mentioned, the first theme today is API strategy aligned with AI. So Suri, let me turn the attention to you. So in the next decade, do you foresee the API portfolio becoming a direct monetized engine for AI models? And how is IBM guiding C-level executives to view their API strategy as an AI investment strategy? Bit of a tongue twister, that one, but I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah. Decade is a long time, but I think I would like to pass this question to the audience. How many of you used ChatGPT? Just raise your hand. How many of you used ChatGPT yesterday? Today? Quite a big number. How many of you are paid subscribers to ChatGPT? Still a decent number. As per statistics, in the whole of APJ, Korea is a market which has the highest paid subscribers for ChatGPT, which is about, not much, 7%, but it doubled from 3.6 to 7 in the last 1 year. What we actually see in the market is a growing number of paid subscriptions to AI. I actually would like to address this question in two ways. So direct consumers paying for AI is one thing. The adoption is still, there is very little traction on that. The other one is the B2B where enterprises pay for AI. So within the context of India, we have a lot of fintech companies exposing AIs and APIs for monetization. For AI, it's still growing, but if you see any of the fintechs for UPI payment, they are all APIs and they are monetizing it in different ways. May not directly charging the consumer, but then there are ways in which they are monetizing it. From an AI perspective, if you have seen the pricing of ChatGPT, have you guys seen the pricing of ChatGPT? So it is all APIs. 1,000 million, they say it as APIs, but then they say 1,000 million tokens per month. It's all through APIs and tokens. So my point is, we have already seen all the tech companies monetizing AIs through APIs, right? And that is getting diversified now. If you look at banks, if you look at all the fintechs, which are the first ones to adopt AI, APIs, and monetize it. So I'm seeing quite a few fintechs today charging based on APIs for value additions like credit rating. So many things related to the consumer, especially in the fintech field. When you want to apply for a loan, you go for the credit rating and all those stuff. All those are monetized using APIs. So we are seeing a big traction, the usage of AI in the fintech, and they are all monetized over APIs. Abhijit, I think you can add value to this with your context on access.
First of all, thanks for having me here. Thanks, George. And you're right. AI in banking, if I say, I have used AI in banking back in 2017-18 also. Those days we used to build ML models, mini AI models to identify product recommendations for customers, right? In fact, a few days ago, one from API's Bangalore team, some core committee team, she reached out to me and she was talking about that where we can use agentic, right? Now, if you see in last 2-3 years, the adoption of AI has made a huge shift. It has shifted from enterprise to D2C, to the end consumer. Now, we are getting feedback from, customers who are little upskilled customer, who knows about digital, who are very digital friendly. They say that why not you bring, GPT kind of features into your app? So the demand is in the market. And when the demand is in the market, you will have to, empower your customers. And how you'll empower it? I was talking to you about that use case, right? AI or LLM, whichever we feed him, it will give the answer. It's just like that, magic lamp. You will get what you wish for, but you should have a control, and that control will come through that API. And the monetization part, if you see, all the feature use cases, for example, new age payment, or in fact, credit underwriting, it has a huge impact of AI. Previously, we used to be in a very much rule-based thing. All the banks, their credit underwriting processes were very rule-based. Nowadays, it has become completely probabilistic. And LLM or this GenAI has empowered that. So this monetization will kick in, and probably many banks, in fact, we are also into this space, right? So our API adoptions after this AI thing has been doubled.
Very good. Thanks, Suri and Abhijit.
George, I will add more to this.
Oh, go ahead.
So before the monetization of AI itself, from IBM's philosophy, it's a bit different. I just wanted to share this. Today we announced a partnership with Anthropic, right? So our philosophy first is to democratize AI. Democratizing AI from 3 perspectives. One, the AI use itself. AI development, and then AI governance. Three different angles to it. So the way we do it is a bit different. So we do have partnership with Anthropic and other things from a democratization, making use of open source, letting people consume. First, there has to be equity in the AI consumption itself. If you look at the statistics, big enterprises having employees 1,000 plus, if you look at their investments on AI, it is about 40%. Meaning 40% of large enterprises have some investment in AI. If you look at below 100 employee companies, their AI investment, if you look at the companies, only 4% of small companies invest on AI, which is not good, right? So IBM's philosophy is to democratize this use of AI, development of AI, governance of AI, and that's the reason why we are doing all these partnerships and all that stuff. We have open source tools. We have a community called Hugging Space. So we have the Granite model, the AI models and everything available there. You just can go make use of it. So our philosophy is to first democratize AI and then help companies monetize AI.
Great, thanks, Suri. So Vanita, let's ask you a question from the TCS side. So from your perspective, you obviously work with many different clients across India. So how are you seeing, your clients aligning their API strategy with AI, for the future?
So from strategy perspective, if I start by just saying that AI and APIs are definitely very deeply interconnected. You cannot think about an AI without an API. So giving you just a base, I'm sure everybody knows about this, but how API works is, API will give the necessary business data and the contextual information to the AI agents to think in the right way so that they can take the correct business decisions for us. And that's what we want, right? So it's more around until unless AI and API will work together, they cannot do wonders. So they have to work together seamlessly. So just giving you a little bit of a background of what Gartner also says. Definitely, my AI management is going to be one of the key pillars in my AI application architecture. So again, we are stating the same thing, that AI and API cannot be differentiated. They have to go together. As you said, that yes, we have experience of working on a lot of API management implementation, wherein it ranges from strategy definition to architecture, implementation, evangelization, everything. I want to give this answer with an example. 3 years back, I was engaged in an API implementation for a large telco, wherein the ask was, please come and implement a successful API journey for us, wherein we know that our business units are running in silos. So we have to build some platform which will give them or enable them to co-create and co-innovate at the same time. So what do you think? There are lots of aspects that we have to take care by when we get into such type of engagement. So we started with this engagement, which started from the platform selection, implementation, setting up the right COE models around the standard, automation, governance. As Suri was also saying, for AI, automation, governance is a prime aspect. Once everything was done, at the same time, we have to ensure that once you align everything, there are lots of APIs which are going to come in play. How will you actually make them discoverable? How will you have the documentation in place? The right SDKs for the consumption, the right security also. So after doing all these things, now they are very much streamlined from the strategy perspective. Okay, why I'm giving this example is the next stage in their journey is the AI enablement, right? Now they are seamlessly able to move in their AI journey, getting the right business values because they have actually streamlined their API journey well. So what I'm trying to say is customers who have already done it, governed the thing traffic very well, streamlined their API operation, it's very seamless for them to migrate to the API journey. Yeah? And those who are very new in this journey without actually taking good care of their API thing, we are into doing the same exercise for them, putting the right governance mechanism, putting the right security guardrails. So it's an exercise that you have to do prior hand before getting into the AI.
Very interesting. So, Abhijit, let's switch to you here. So, how will the ability to seamlessly use APIs and connect to and orchestrate specialized AI models become the core competitive background for banks?
Right. See, as I started earlier, right, AI is not very new thing for banking, right? What we are doing for last 6-7 years, now we'll have to make it public, right? Previously, we used to create personalized product. Now, these all will be hyper-personalized. What is hyper-personalization in banking? Is that the app which you logged in or any digital channel where you are trying to interact with bank, that channel will identify you as a person, your behavior, your the way you talk, the way you converse, right? Maybe with a Gen Z cohort customer, the language will be different. Now, how we will do this? We'll be doing it with LLM, right? And to empower this, we need to have an API. Now, the strategy what we have built is that LLM or GenAI or any AI model will be the generator of the content. The decisioning or the data feeding will be done via API. So that's why in our organization, AI and API, these are the two symbiotic relation which we do believe. None of our AI implementation been happening in last 2 years has no API. I mean, API has to be there, right? For example, the auditability of the AI models, all the tokens which are being generated, how we are reading through the token. We need to have an API, right? We are discussing that. For example, this RBI AI framework, that 7 sutras, which recently been published, it has a very clear mandate that each of your LLM calls, first of all, it has to be within the geography, but whenever you are doing these calls, it has to be audited, right? Now, how we'll do this audit? We need to have an API. And we need to have an analytics dashboard. In fact, all the agents which we have recently built, we need to have an orchestrator. That orchestrator will act as an intelligent, observability tool to all these agents. These orchestrators should know which agent is doing what. For example, what Vinita was saying, just imagine all these large banks like Axis or the banks in the same league. We have thousands of APIs. Now, our business team has reached out to us and said that, hey, we need to implement this use case. I just cannot ask my product managers to go check the entire, the dashboard of API and find out which is the API that will go with these use cases. It's a very redundant work. People will not like it, right? If you have an AI tool, that AI tool will identify this discovery. So this intelligent discovery, this intelligent automation, that is the strategy that we have taken, and we are into that direction, actually.
Thank you. So, Praveen, let's maybe switch to an IBM question. So, how does IBM's product strategy use AI to offer a unified single pane of glass for managing a sprawling, decentralized API ecosystem for human-facing and machine-machine facing?
First of all, great to be here. Today's API management landscape in most organizations is hybrid, distributed, and also multi-vendor, right? And managing not just the APIs today, APIs, microservices, and also the tools and the other primitives that are actually required for agentic consumption. With the APIs continuing to be the backbone for the AI, so this heterogeneity and sprawl will only continue to increase, right? So now take the case of the tools for agentic consumption, MCP or otherwise, right? So there is there is definitely a rush in organizations today to expose the APIs or their data or functions as MCP tools, right? And this in turn is actually driven by the rapid adoption of the agentic ecosystem. What this causes is, since most of the standards around the MCPR tools are still evolving, most of the implementations are tactical and fragmented as against more strategic and standardized, right? And what this would lead to is, for example, within an organization, you could have multiple teams independently developing these tools, right? Without coming under the guardrail of the governance. Then you could also have, today, this a huge number of, for example, take the case of MCP. There's a number of MCP implementations, right? And what this also leads to is a proliferation of silo technology stacks, right? So, and the adapters and the glue code that is actually required for you to connect your legacy systems to these agentic, to the tools that are required for agentic consumption. So there's going to be an inconsistent way of error handling, the data modeling, and also the lack of governance and lifecycle management, right? Literally, what this leads to is something called as an tool sprawl. So we have seen API sprawl before, we have seen microservices sprawl. So this tool sprawl actually leads to hundreds or thousands of tools suddenly propping up within your organization with uneven quality, unclear ownership, right? And also overlapping capabilities. That's another important thing. So all this actually leads to different types of risks. So from the business standpoint, so there is lack of productivity, or you have a productivity loss, or the erosion of trust of the services that you're actually offering. There is a security challenges, there is governance challenges, there are operational challenges and all that. So while the API management vendors must embrace this heterogeneity and decentralized approach and the advantages that come from that, they must also be well positioned to be able to manage this heterogeneity, right? So this is where I think a single pane of glass can actually help you contain or get a central oversight which will help you manage this sprawl quite well. So when I say single pane of glass, what do I exactly mean? In a very simpler terms, I would say a single pane of glass can be described as 4 verbs actually acting on 2 nouns, right? So understand. Are you able to understand can you get a 360-degree view of your entire landscape, right? Not just the APIs, but also your tools and rest of the things. Then can you do an impact analysis? Can you have a global catalog for a discovery? I think someone talked about the discovery here as well, right? So then the second verb is being able to do the monitoring, right? Whether it's operational monitoring or whether you wanted to do a transactional monitoring where you can draw some business intelligence on top of that. Then can you do a centralized governance? The governance is a third verb, right? So can you do a federated governance with a centralized view of the compliance across your different primitives? And lastly, the federation, right? So today you can't just, no single API management vendor can actually fulfill all the expectations. So you'll have to have a federated model. So can you federate with third-party vendor gateways? Can you federate with third-party tools, right? So these are the 4 verbs, and the 2 nouns are pretty simple, right? So one is the assets or the primitives. This could be your API, this could be your microservices, or this could be your tools or agents. And the other primitive is the workloads on which these, the runtimes on which these different assets actually work. So if you look at the overall problem in itself, so there's so much that AI can actually offer, from discovery to governance to monitoring to productivity.
Very good, Praveen, thank you. So let's move on to the topic of governance. So Vanita, let's start with you. This is a big one, so I hope you're ready. So what are the 3 non-negotiable mandates from a governance perspective that Indian enterprises must adopt now to future-proof their systems for the next decade of AI-driven transformation?
So I'll pick the answer from the 3 responses that was received here. One definitely becomes observability, which is very much needed. On the face value, I need what all APIs are there. But behind the scene, are they capturing required details for my operations team also to rectify and pick up the problems and resolve them on the fly? Because we always know that if there are multiple systems in the landscape, everybody will use their own logging platform. Right? There is no unified logging. But still you need to get a unified view so that you can take out proper insight, right, reports out of it. So observability becomes the one point. The second is more around the security and the guardrails, which was just mentioned by Praveen. Why security guardrail? Because here you are actually interacting with LLMs. So you have to put a guardrail and put a secured way by which you should not expose your enterprise-specific secured data outside. You have to be really careful about it. Data privacy, all these constraints needs to be taken care of. Third, definitely becomes the cost saving, right? As Suri said, right, just who all are having the paid version of ChatGPT? We are just talking here about one LLM maybe, right? What about an organization wherein they are dealing with multiple LLMs? So in that case, we have to ensure that the right team should access the right LLM in the right way. For example, for R&D, I would always need a high-end LLM access, right? So that I can get the right value out of it. And whereas if I'm just doing some practice work or a beginner level learning thing, I don't need a high-end LLM there. So there has to be a guardrail put out in that front so that I can optimize and reduce the cost accordingly, right? So here, I would say AI gateways plays an important role, and maybe Praveen or Suri will definitely talk about how IBM has also come up with enhanced version of their API capability to AI gateway and LLM gateway.
Very good. Oh, you want to say a few things, Praveen?
I can quickly answer to that one, right? So, look, so it's not just about the gateways. Obviously, the entire API management suite of products will have to undergo a bit of transformation to support this agentic sprawl, right? And what becomes a lot more important is more of a context-aware gateways. So based on the context that you actually supply, so whether it is the context of just the APIs or context of just a microservices for east-west communication or the context of AI, or even the tools. So depending on that, your gateways must be able to operate slightly differently, but the table stakes still remain the same when it comes to the transport, when it comes to security and other things. So that's how we kind of look at how this is evolving. This is primarily from the gateway standpoint, but then there is also a larger picture around how do you give a holistic governance. So you talk about centralized observability. So all those things will have to come together in tandem.
Thanks, Praveen. Abhijit, maybe let's hear from you, around governance and where banking's going in this space, similar to the question, Vanita. How is it changing from your perspective, and what have you got to do to keep up?
Yeah. But before that, I'll just take a cue what Vinita has mentioned. One thing I think on that AI hallucination, we should have a governance over it, because see, earlier when it was the traditional classical AI models we used to build, we know what we are building. Now we are completely depending upon LLM. So the response I'll advocate, most of the time, and I personally believe that hallucination in LLM is just a feature. We'll have to treat it as a feature, and we need to control it, right? How we can control, how our rule books will be defined, that is another governance that we are working. Especially when a customer is talking to its app about the finance, about the money, and if LLM response is having some hallucination, that's a huge pain point, and it will attract many penalties, especially in Indian banking norms, right? We are very cautious about it, and we should. So that's why building a framework, a governance framework, I think Praveen was talking about the blue book, right? So we have built our framework. We have put what are the do's, what are the don'ts For example, we did the same practice when we were adopting API 6-7 years back. We had our own open API framework, right? What are the use cases we'll be publishing through API or not? So similarly in AI also we have built it. And we are believing on AI evals framework. So if we know about AI evals, so there are these 7 structures of evals, right? Where we see the strategy, criticality, complexity, security, and everything is cohort driven. So if an LLM or a model has given me one response, there should be an API that will recheck that response, right? So that's how we have built our entire governance framework. It's a very new thing. Probably in next 6-7 months, we'll come to know the actual effectiveness of it. But that's how we have built it.
Cool. Suri, let's switch to you for an IBM question around here. So how is IBM positioning its API suite to allow business unit users, not just developers, to safely compose and manage AI-powered services? Would love to get your thoughts on this.
Sure, I think Abhijit earlier gave an example of going to his product manager asking to discover some APIs, right? So typically in the API world, a business user is a product manager, API product manager. So we have come out with something called API agent, which is an AI agent, which can discover APIs, develop APIs. It can do test cases also. So that is something that we have come up with. But that's not the only thing, right? So you can create, of course, APIs, the native APIs. But then you also need something for orchestrating APIs and build a workflow, something that is very meaningful. End of the day, your AIs will consume APIs, and AIs are also getting exposed as APIs. So from a workflow automation perspective, we have a really larger suite in terms of creating, be it integration workflows, be it orchestrating AI agents and coming out with something like a workflow. So from a roadmap perspective, from what we have come out with is something called API agent, along with all the watsonx orchestrate, along with our IBM Web Methods hybrid integration platform for creating integration workflows and all of those, which is all low code, no code. It has traditionally been no code, just drag and drop and create your meaningful workflows. But now we are making it totally no code with AI agents developing the workflow for you. To go back to his example, so I read some news article recently that in India, the check clearance is going to be 1 day. I think it's mandated. It got announced yesterday, I believe, yesterday or day before.
Yesterday only it came.
Yesterday. So assuming you need an API to know the status of a check, whether it's cleared or not, and if you want to go back to your API manager, ask him to create one if it doesn't exist, he doesn't have to go stand in queue with the IT team to develop that API today with our API agent. He can go first discover if there is already an API. The tool will do that for him. If it doesn't exist, he can create it very easily. So that's something that we have recently come out with. You
Very
want to
good.
add anything more to that? You're good? Okay.
Praveen, anything else? Nope. All right, so let's move on to the future roadmap aligning API and AI-led. So, Vanita, let's start with you. So in today's world, how do you see organizations and products aligning together to adopt AI in the API space?
If it is just organizations and products, I would say from both the angles, they are doing something or the other to expand in the AI space. Though they are API ready, the APIs are well defined, but to grow in this AI space, they are doing something or the other. I'll again give an example. From the organization perspective, they are trying to actually streamline their API landscape with the example that I shared initially. In a similar way, what is happening is we are going to have more and more API consumers coming in place with these AI agents coming up with more APIs. So what I need to do is finally I need to identify my consumers well, right? Because if I am able to identify my consumer, I'll be able to manage them, operate them pretty well. So the first challenge becomes for an organization is the consumption of APIs needs to be managed with more and more APIs coming in place. The other aspect is, as we were rightly saying, the discoverability. Now, we were always talking about coming up with a marketplace type of a feature or something like a developer portal feature wherein APIs were listed. Now, we are just not talking about this type of a marketplace. We also want an easy way of consumption because they have to be consumed by my AI applications, right? So in that context, I'll again say that clean up your API space is the target for the organizations at this point in time. From product standpoint and place, Suri and Praveen just mentioned that how the products in the integration and API space are expanding themselves to the space of AI gateway, LLM gateway, having an MCP servers in place, right? Why these are needed? Because it's what AI is promising is easing up your task, correct? So to ease up the task, definitely these MCP servers are needed, which are going to pull up your all external APIs and give it in a very convenient way for consumption. The other thing is from organization perspective, whatever proposal we keep on getting and we hear that, okay, put a little bit of AI flavor to it. Now, what is that AI flavor? Be it be migration, modernization, in every place, we are putting in this AI and we ourselves are using specifically in the migration space, almost with the 30-40% type of an efficiency. With AI, we are able to migrate the things. Again, in the modernization, documentation space or the testing space, again, nowhere I would say the efficiency is below 20-25%. So yes, we are hearing a huge gap. A simple, I would say, response to any proposal or any demand won't work until unless it is AI driven.
Very good. Abhijit, let's hear from you. So I would love to get your thoughts on what the future looks like for banking around API and AI.
Two aspects to it. One is the customer point of view. I, as a banking customer, if I see, sorry, in last 2.5 years, the way I do banking now, it is more conversational. So maybe in next 1 or 2 years, there will be no navigation-driven, menu-driven app will be there. Everything will be conversational. Maybe a Perplexity AI kind of experience where I just log into my app, I'll type that what is my BAL and the balance will come up. But it's not a chatbot. We shouldn't get mixed up with a chatbot and conversational app, right? There are two different things. So this conversation thing will come up. In fact, we already are into that space and many other peer banks are also there. And if you see the organization point of view, maximum utilization or optimum utilization of the resources, reducing operation costs. Because if you see globally, all the organizations are struggling with the customer acquisition cost or operational cost, right? Customer servicing cost. How we can implement AI or GenAI to maintain it, to manage it. That's the future. Also, we'll have to empower our customers with all these AI features so that their adoption to our digital channels or digital product should get increased. So these are the three pillars of roadmap, if you see, in banking, at least in BFSI of India. Right.
Very exciting. So Praveen, let's move to an IBM question. So how does IBM's API management roadmap address the unique demands of managing millions of API calls generated by agents, particularly regarding performance billing and rate limiting? So would love to get your thoughts here.
Yeah, so look, I think the API management solution in general has a lot to offer in this space, given the decades of experience in addressing these performance and other things, right? So before I get to the performance kind of problems, look, API is pretty much standardized the way how the organizations expose the data and functions. Right now, the tools that we are actually starting to see is actually standardizing how these data and functions are now exposed for agentic consumption, right? So in many ways, then these tools are actually built on top of APIs, but then the consumption patterns are changing. So the APIs are actually built for traditional application consumption, right? Now, when you talk about agentic consumption, you don't want to, they don't look for syntax and schemas. They look for intent and value, right? So, and I think this is where there is a big opportunity for an API, from an API management vendor to say, can you help your clients reduce the time to value from days or from, for example, months to days or even hours to get the value of their existing API investments. That's a real deal, but with the promise of security and governance and rest of the things that we spoke about. Now back to the question on the performance itself, as I said, so the traffic patterns have actually changed dramatically, right? So when it comes to performance, you're talking about massive concurrency, right? And you're also need to guard against the burst. So unpredictable burst patterns that you would start to see from these new traffic patterns. The other part is also about, Suri talked about monetization, right? So there is, when it comes to billing, the cost attribution becomes key as well, right? So can you attribute the costs accurately to a human versus an agentic consumption, right? So that becomes key. Microtransactions, tracking your transactions at a much finer level will also become key. The rate limiting. Can you do an intelligent context-aware rate limiting? More of a value-based rather than just a number of transaction calls. And can you also ensure that there's a fairness in terms of agentic consumption? So, for example, in the past we have used to solve these problems on the API through something like a bulkhead or a circuit breakers where you don't have one API is pretty much eating up the entire resources. So those kind of things, along with the fine-grained access controls. So those becomes important. Net, I would see from an API management solutions, so there are two aspects. One, the vendors will have to make sure that they build capabilities that can actually make their existing APIs for agentic consumption ready, like tooling and building guardrails and other things. And secondly, to even prepare their existing APIs for agentic consumption, right? So because as I said, the traffic patterns have changed, the governance requirements have actually changed. So both the perspectives will have to run in parallel.
Great, thanks Praveen. Suri, so this is more of an opinion-based question. So outside of tech, which industry do you foresee taking advantage of API AI-led strategy over the next sort of 5 years? Would love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, so in my opinion, see, AI technology is going to play a level fielding thing, right? So whichever industry has a lot of data that they can monetize, that they can use AI to achieve more, is the one. So from that perspective, I believe it is the BFSI industry. Because banks have a lot of, so any transaction that you do today, banks know, right? So I buy something, I consume something, I travel, anything that I do to any of these, I mean, from a financial transaction perspective. So they are sitting on a lot of data, banks and fintechs and all these companies, right? So using AI, they can do a lot of things like underwriting. They can come up with some predictions in terms of even they can sell the data to other companies. For example, banks will know whether it's Swiggy, whether it's Zomato, which is selling more than these companies, right? So they are sitting on a lot of data which they can mine and they can really make use of. But I'm also seeing other industries like pharma making use of AI to discover new, what is called API, active pharmaceutical ingredient, like paracetamol. So from an efficiency, innovation perspective, it's a level playing field. They are able to use AI to do a lot of new innovations and stuff. But from a direct impact perspective to a consumer, I believe it is the BFSI that has a strategic advantage because of the data that they have. Maybe if anybody else has a good opinion.
No, I think that's a good segue because I have a question for Avijit on this
Perfect.
exact topic, actually. So, Avijit, like, if that's the case, I mean, what is the true North Star of measuring the success of these types of rollouts?
As you rightly said, BFSI, we are sitting on a data, and in India especially, uh, all those private banks, we started in around early 90s, so 30, 35 years old data we have. PSU banks, they were working much before than that. And we have seen a lot many changes in the demography. In every year, we get some new norms, the data actually travels. It travels from one era to another era, right? And it gets changed. So it is very difficult to manage those data and to monetize it. Now, whether we'll be able to commercially monetize this data with Swiggy or Zomato, that I can't say. Probably that has a huge compliance angle to it. But the first point which, as an North Star matrix, we should have is that we shouldn't have any data silos in our organization. The moment I have data silo, none of my AI, none of my API will work. Because data silo, if you ask me, in last 10 years of my experience in banking in India, probably the biggest enemy for your digital transformation program is the data silo, right? So first, we need to have a zero data silo thing. That should be our first North Star metric. The second one is that how much my redundant operations are getting reduced with the help of AI. Second and third is that how much I'm empowering my customers. How quick is my GTM, right? So these are the four North Star metrics as of now which we have identified. And as I told you, it's a ever evaluating model, right? So maybe in next 6 months or 1 year, some more things will happen. But one thing I'm very clear about, that when we did all this API thing back in 7, 8 years before, we saw that API chaos or API sprawling things happened, right? Now, every organization, we are very cautious that we cannot have agent sprawling or agent chaos, right? I think Vinita, you were talking about that agent marketplace or some kind of developer portal, right? So every agent should be observed. Every agent should be measured and monitored. Otherwise, if agents go rogue, right, that will be a huge problem. Probably that will be more critical than a shadow or zombie API, right? So these are the North Star metrics that we follow normally.
Very good. Vinita, I think we've got time for one more question. So thinking along the, as we go down this path, what do you see, from a talent perspective? And how are organizations, that you work with, because you're obviously working with a lot of organizations across India, how are they kind of setting themselves up so they don't have a challenge with talent?
So I would say picking up the talent from market is always a tedious activity, right? If something has come up newly, right, you won't get too many people working on the similar stack, right? So to avoid that challenge, usually organization first try to train within the organization. That is, moreover, within the organization, can I cross-skill, can I cross-train? But then after some time, they feel it is a time-consuming activity. They are missing on something. So we always know that FOMO factor, right? So an AI is promising everything very quick. Then why should I take so much of time to train within the organization? Can I make use of SIs like ours or some other vendors to engage them so that to identify if they have something already built on what I am looking in for, and also I can pick up the talent from their end. So when now I am talking about how we take care of this, definitely we cannot hire too many people from outside with this AI talent. So as we were just talking about, APIs are the enablers and AI is used for innovation, or maybe they are amplifiers, right? So I am not taking these two things as a separate part. Why can't I train my existing resources on the AI thing, conduct some internal hackathons, right? I have so many sites from where people can get trained. After having hackathon, definitely have some reward and recognition program also embedded in my learning latitude, wherein I will say that whoever comes up with the maximum number of AI ideas, how fast you can build a particular app, accordingly you will be rewarded. And nobody wants to miss on that reward factor. So the learning is expedited, right? You have more and more people coming forward to learn something new, which is going to amplify their learning pace as well as the organization's need. So this is the best way I would say it to actually cope up with the talent challenge within. And that's what we are doing.
Very good. Well, thank you. So we'll pass it to the audience if anyone has any questions for any of the panelists here.
Thank you all, and there were very nice questions for you and nice answers from all of you. You rightly said, Suri, that banks have so much data that we can utilize them. And you also rightly said, Abhijit, like private banks started 3 decades ago, but before that, the government banks are there, like State Bank of India and other banks, which have lots of data. So when you interact with other banks, how much they're cooperative in terms of this API world? So, like, you might be interacting with other banks as well, right? From Axis Bank to SBI, SBI Bank to Axis Bank. So, how the modernization is there over there compared to private banks?
See, I think all the banks, all the peer banks of us, they know the importance of digital transformation. They understand the power of collaboration, right? India is a population of 1.5 and we have around 70 million bank customer. Now, if you have to cater a good customer experience, you need to have a collaboration, and that's why you have seen that UPI has become such a huge success. If you didn't have a collaboration among the banks, probably UPI couldn't be that level of successful thing, right? And there are many things. In fact, tomorrow in Global FinTech Festival, there will be many new features which will be launched by our RBI, right? Where all the banks are now collaborating. So collaboration is there. Because at the end of the day, no one bank can manage or can cater the best level of service. I mean, it is a curated one. All will have to provide the same kind of services, right? In fact, fortunately, our central banking agency, RBI, they are also very much encouraging in that manner. They are encouraging us with many more frameworks. There are many cohorts we have built, right, collaboratively. So, collaboration is there to answer your question. Thank you.
Question. Hi, I'm Prashant. Thank you for this wonderful discussion, very interesting. Question is on API governance, and primarily for Abhijit and Praveen. You mentioned that you have rules for governance, especially when you have AI in place, you have evals that you need to check. But these rules are evolving. How do you enforce the governance? I think that's a very complicated topic. I want to get your thoughts on it.
Look, when the AI models rely on APIs to actually make real-time sensitive business decisions, you're absolutely spot on that the traditional governance methods will have to try. I mean, there has to be a massive transformation. In my point of view, there are a couple of things. One is, can you explain things? Right, so data lineage, would you be able to add some contextual metadata to the responses that we send out from the APIs, right? So that's one. And secondly, auditability. I think Vinitha talked about auditability as well. Auditability also changes a bit different here, because can you have an end-to-end traceability of the intent that you're actually doing, not just the regular audit that you're talking about. Then you need to, I spoke about the single pane of glass for a central oversight and the governance options that it actually brings in. Then regulatory compliance is definitely one such thing, right? So can you guard against, now that you are having multiple mechanisms through which the data is going out, so can you guard against a PII, um, uh, I mean, inconsistent handling of the PII data and other sensitive information. So in general, I think the governance framework will have to change and you need to embed some of these techniques, but I mean, the key outcome should be, would you be able to let the organizations to actually make more trusted decisions, at the same time stay on top of all this regulatory, the stringent regulatory compliance that keeps coming up, right? I don't know if Abhijit, you want to answer.
No, I mean, exactly the same answer I'll also give, especially about AI evals, right? You know about AI evals, right? There are all these 7 frameworks of evals, if you see, it is very contextual. For example, 2 pillars of evals may work for one particular use case. For other use case, maybe 3 or 4 is needed, right? So your model should identify that which evals it should go through, right? I'm just giving an example. Let's say you have a feature, that feature says that a customer will upload a photo of a particular product, and the product will be classified or categorized. The app, the AI model will identify the product category. So now when you have uploaded that product, let's say you are into Paris, right? And you are in that famous road called Champs-Élysées, and you have seen that Gucci or Versace bag, and you have took the photo. Now the bag is from Paris or the same model you are searching from Delhi or Mumbai. Your evals framework should identify that, right? Now this is one use case. Here you need just 3 evals framework. But there are certain cases where a very geolocation based product, for example, maybe you are in Chennai and you are searching for a Kanchivaram sari, right? Kanchivaram is from Chennai, I think. Yeah. So, yeah. So you're searching for that. In that case, maybe 1 or 2 eval framework might work. So which framework will work and all, this will be completely analyzed and managed by a model. And you will have to build that model. And you are right, you cannot stop it with one model. It is ever evaluating. Because if you see, 1 year back, we didn't heard of agents and all, right? Since December onwards, we heard that AI agents will change the world and all, right? Maybe in next 6 months, some new things will come up. So your eval frameworks will also get changed accordingly. Right? Thank you.
Thanks, Abhijit. One last question we have.
I'll just add on to this governance part a bit. Again, technically speaking, governance will have multiple flavors. When I talk about the life cycle, be it be AI or API, governance can be imposed at any point, right? So as far as possible, try to automate whatever one can do in various phases, right from your design to build to deploy, automate and create a centralized governance framework, I would say. But nowadays, people are not restricted towards only keeping the centralized model because they want to work in a federated way. So once the centralized model is created, then we try to distribute it across the organization to the different BUs to take care of the little bit aspect of federation, right? Because all of them want to manage it in a different way. So this automation has helped us managing the API and AI both in a governed way, because whatever are the best practices one can impose in various phases, I have already imposed in an automated way. The second part is now simply talking about one of the example which Abhijit was giving. Say I upload a particular image which is overlapped, okay, wherein I really want to see the authenticity and whether genuinity of that image, which is, for example, a data which is uploaded. Then I should have a discoverability if there is something which is overlaying that information. Is there something which is not following my data compliances, right? Behind the scene there is a different data and on top of it, it is overlaid via genuine data. I should not entertain these things. So we have also created something to distinguish such type of ambiguity. So what I was trying to say is automate at each and every phases whatsoever you can to impose that governance.
Hi, Abhijit. This is a question for, in terms of the bank. So as a bank, right, customer consent is at most importance. So when coming to API and AI being that symbiotic relationship, right? So how do you, first is, how do you manage in terms of selecting the right technology stack that you need to have that make sure, you get the right AI products? For example, the models that we use, which doesn't have any data or anything that's being leaked. What is a governance, not very general, but a deep governance built where we are not kind of giving any customer data outside to the models. So how do we ensure that?
Very fair question, and as a banking customer, everybody should ask this question to their respective bank, because we all are talking about AI, right? One thing for sure, we are not dealing with any PII or SPDI data. None of the banks are sharing, at least in our organization, I can vouch for it. Even RBI framework also said the same thing. We cannot share any PII or SPDI data, right? For example, this use case of uploading an image. Here I'm just uploading an image. Maybe I can identify, or maybe LLM can identify the intent of the customer, that he probably wants to buy this product, but nothing more than that. His or her transactions or any demography or anything that we are not sharing. About the consent management, very recently we have launched one product. In fact, today only that will be officially published, and one of my team initiatives is that a connected banking. So Zoho is a SAP of India. It's a huge ERP. Tally also, right? So Axis Bank customers, they can do banking from Zoho ERP or Tally ERP. Okay, it's a completely native experience. So we have built a consent management thanks to API gateway of IBM. So the entire consent we are keeping, right? And this consent will get validated. If you have given a consent, for example, the PIN you have for your mobile banking app, whichever banking app you're using, you will see it has a validity, it has an expiry token, right? And you will have, and there are many telemetry data we are capturing to identify whether it is you only or not, right? So that's how we are building it. Probably not all the security measures I can talk about, but one thing for sure, PII and SPDI we are very cautious about. In fact, we have our WhatsApp banking channel where you can do many banking transaction. There is no PII data we are exposing in Meta also, right?
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for wonderful session and sharing insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.